I can't tell if well,
Yeah,
it says
it's
we're
live.
live. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull up the actual feed in YouTube because it's not showing
Yeah, there
up
we
on.
are.
Okay, we're on. All right.
Yeah.
Looks like we're on. Oh yeah, we are on because I hear
Yeah.
myself now. What's up,
What's going
YouTube?
on?
What's up, everybody out there? This is another episode of the Embodied Mind podcast. My name is Prince. I got my main man Ash on. How you doing today, Ash?
Not too bad. What's going on, Prince? It's good to see you as always.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Not too much is going on. I started listening to this new book on Audible, and I can't remember the name of it. Sumiko recommended it to me. I forgot the name. I'll be able to tell you in a minute because it's all about what we do here on this podcast.
All right.
It's a
Sounds
book on
good.
Buddhism and meditation. I should stall for a minute till I can find it. But how's your week been?
Pretty crazy. And I'm trying to get, squared away for because they have the instructor retreat coming up. So I'll be gone for a week. Well, actually, like 10 days. I think I leave on the 9th and I get back on the 16th. So like just before Father's Day. And I got a bunch of work that I'm trying to get done, before then. So just been trying to grind it out, and it's like starting to get hot here in Arizona. You can probably see I got my reverse raccoon going on because I'm out in the sun now. It's like the sun is like full, it's full intensity. So I got my got my shades on. It gives me the reverse raccoon, and I'll look like this until October. But and then it's like my daughter had sent me a meme on Facebook last year. It was called like Neapolitan ice cream, because it's like you got three or four different shades on your leg. So my knees are all like super dark, and then above that is pale, and then my lower leg is somewhat tan, but I still have like a sock line, and so I look like a mess right now, but it's all good.
Yeah. The book is called Buddha's Brain by Rick Hanson. Practical Neuroscience of Buddha's Brain, Happiness, Love, and Wisdom. There's some, you hear that static in your ear?
I don't hear anything. It sound like my mic is acting up?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. So
right.
it's the Practical Neuroscience of Buddha's Brain, Happiness, Love, and Wisdom. So that's it on Audible. So yeah, I mean, basically, it's pretty much what we talk about here. The neurons that fire together, wire together, and there's one, because I'm only like in the chapter 2. I just started listening to it this morning, and I do this in the car. I don't really actually listen to them on my phone, but it looked at the brain as a structure, like a physical structure, and the mind is like what the brain does, and with everything. So it's basically like the brain controls the mind and controls the energy that the body uses. So whatever that structure does determines what the body does. And I guess just as a theologian, I had issues with that because, and not even as a theologian, because I also read up like Sam Harris, some of these other guys who actually follow a mindfulness practice, but they're more into the science side and not the woo-woo theology, existential questions and answers. But even he says we don't actually know what mind is. Does that extend beyond the physical body? Does it survive after death? So that was the one issue that I've had with this so far. But like I'm only like starting chapter 2. And I'm driving when I'm listening, so sometimes I only like remember what actually stands out.
Yeah, the way that I like to kind of think of it is that you know, like the brain does the thinking,
Mhm.
right? So I don't think that that's uh, too much of a question, right? So it's like the
Right.
brain does the thinking, like your discursive thinking, but consciousness is a whole body generated experience. Like I said, we've mentioned a couple times in the last few episodes about like the enteric nervous system and the role that that plays. But I mean, you think about like like your posture, right? And how like your posture will affect your mood, and also like communicates, out to other people like how you're feeling. Just little things like the sense of proprioception and the kinesthetic senses. Like I know where like all my parts are in space. It's like that's part of like your conscious experience. Of course, some of that stuff is going to get registered in the brain because it's like your thought process and your thinking can't get cut off from all that information. So it's like all that information is being shared like in multiple directions. But of course, again, I'm not an expert on embodied cognition. So my hope is that pretty soon we'll be able to get um, somebody from the field and embodied cognition on the show so that they can enlighten us a little bit more. But yeah, just to summarize, like I said, the way that I like to think about it is that the brain does the thinking, but consciousness is a whole body generated experience, and like I said, that's more or less the theme of the podcast, right? It's like the integration of like the mind and the body with no and, right? It's just mind body is one thing. Uh, Another thing in the future, like in a future episode, see if we can find somebody that's a fluent Japanese speaker. I read an interesting article about the Japanese concept of kokoro,
Mhm.
and where it's sort of like a similar concept, where it's like mind, body, and spirit. It's like it's unified as one thing. It's all defined as like kokoro, and it'd be kind of interesting to have somebody on, maybe somebody from the martial arts side of things, or not, but that they can talk to us a bit about that more.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I thought of one. I thought of one person that would be interesting to have that conversation with, but she's Korean, and she has some interesting thoughts on stuff in that area, but she's very like Bible based. So
Mm.
I remember she did this talk on chi, and since that's kind of our neck of the woods, I didn't necessarily agree with what she said, but I thought it was because like she was relating things to stuff in the Bible, and I was there at one point in time, but now I've fallen so far to the dark side that I can't even go back. It's like if I hear that conversation, it's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but doesn't really work for me.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, at some point there'd be, considering that, I mean, at one point, I mean, I can't remember. Did you finish your master's in divinity, or you were pursuing it, and then you
I
were going to
was
get your doctorate?
at one time, and this was when I was still in Kentucky. So there's I don't know if I've ever talked much about it, but there's this text called the Jesus Sutra. So like in the I want to say in the ninth century, that's when Christianity actually came to China. Maybe it was the 8th century. It was like Arabic Christians. This church is like all of them ended up becoming Sufi Muslims, like the mystical branch of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But before then, they were allowed to keep practicing. The monks were very uh, I don't want to say wide. They knew a lot of languages, so they
Right.
actually there's the whole journey to the West and how the Buddhist sutras came to China. That actually was brought about by these Christian monks because they spoke all these different languages, they helped translate those texts. So some people were like, hey, well, you guys are cool. What's this Jesus stuff you're talking about? And the only way that they could, like, the terms didn't exist in that ancient Chinese, so they had to borrow from Taoism and Buddhism. So you have these Jesus sutras where it's basically the gospel, but like it's like Jesus and the 12 bodhisattvas, and Jesus is the bodhisattva is Kuan Yin, except he's a dude instead of a chick.
Right.
So I had to write a paper on that, and my professor, who was actually South Korean, he was like, "Holy crap, dude! You do Tai Chi, and you really like had this really sound understanding of Buddhism and Taoism, So he was like, dude, don't do the ministry thing. Because at the time I was kind of getting ready to leave and take care of my grandma. He was like, go to Vanderbilt, finish your MDiv there, and then get in a PhD program, learn Mandarin, and go like do PhD studies and this stuff. Like you do Tai Chi, Kung Fu, like go to China and study that stuff and make a lot of money and forget ever working in a church. So like in the back of my mind, that was like what I really wanted to do. But now I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to spend all those years in school and being broke, and being a student, writing papers and dealing with all this other stuff that I'm not interested in.
Yeah, and then a PhD in that area field of study, I mean, basically the only thing you're going to be able to do with it is teach.
Yeah, at a school that will let me teach.
Right. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that you have to let's drop a link for that in the show notes down below. And if you're out there watching and you have read the Jesus Sutras, drop us a comment in the comment section below. Let us know what you thought about that material. But I want to read myself now, and because it's pretty interesting, if you look into some of the history of Buddhism, it kind of looks like Buddhism actually went west before it actually went east, and so there's a long history of like what they call Greco-Buddhism, and which kind of meshed pretty well, I think, with already some of the existing philosophies in Greece at that time, or in Macedonia, in that area. But because it's like, I think a lot of people don't realize that like the West, it's not necessarily that you need to be like a Sinophile or a Japanophile to embrace like some of these concepts, because the West also had like these kind of concepts. So for instance, like and the word Qi, like the root word of Qigong, right, is made up of two characters. One is rice, and the other one is one that like is air, basically. So it's like the combination of like food and your breath that is giving like the body vital energy, right? But in Latin, the root word of words like animation or animated is the Latin word anima. And anima also had a connotation, like the same thing, like what animates the body, but it had the connotation also of the breath. So like a lot of this stuff has been or was in the West a long time ago, and that's one of the things that maybe we can talk about in a future episode, maybe about some of the stuff that got nixed from like the Western Bible during the Council of Nicaea, were like all kind of like that Gnostic Christian stuff, that like they probably had practices that were a lot like what we would be familiar with as far as like meditation and Qigong. So for instance, Alex Skalazub is the chief instructor of Ilitran in Moscow, and he is a devout Eastern Orthodox Christian. And but actually, fascinatingly enough, here in Tucson, or it's just outside of Tucson, there's an Eastern Orthodox monastery, and they have like some kind of I don't want to mischaracterize it, but my understanding of what he told me about it was that they have like some secret meditation technique, which is basically, so like for instance, and for our listeners who aren't like familiar with meditation, or the kind of meditation that we're talking about, when you reach a certain level, you're supposed to experience an altered mental state called the jhanas. Okay, and what Alex was telling me was that this lineage teaches that you can't accept just any jhana. It has to take a certain form in order for it to be like the right jhana. But jhana wasn't the word that he used. But yeah, so like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, I think, has like preserved a lot of the kind of meditation techniques and things that were probably present in early Christianity that have been lost, for 1,500 years, 2,000 years, for all intents and purposes. The Council of Nicaea was like 400 AD, something like that.
450. Your mic is staticky.
I might need to clean up my. Better?
Yeah. But yeah, I actually know somebody who could talk all about specifically that monastery in Tucson, the history of monasticism within the Orthodox churches. Dr. Kyriakos Markides, all of like my old videos where I was like fascinated with Daskalos. He wrote those in the early 80s. Who was like a Christian mystic in Cyprus. And then he there's some stuff that happened within that community. Daskalos' daughter actually invited me to come out to Cyprus and train with them. But I don't exactly have money to go to Cyprus. But the American branch actually has like a week-long training at some resort in Sedona, which is not that expensive, but it's like, okay, I have to have a week to go and hang out with them. But Dr. Markides he's like written several books on kind of his experience as pilgrim going and hanging out at these monasteries. I can't think of, he calls him Father Maximos, but that's not his real name. But basically Father Maximos in his books, that character is the one who was instrumental in getting that monastery up and going in Tucson. And there's like a weird story about like a prisoner, some dude that was locked up at I think at Camp Estrella or Estrella prison out in outside of Phoenix, who somehow got out, and either he got out and became a monk and he's there at that monastery, or he's still doing monastic practices in the prison. I don't remember. But yeah, Dr. Markides, he doesn't do too many podcasts, but it might just be that people aren't that in. He was on like one dude's podcast that like does CrossFit stuff, and then he was like, oh yeah, somebody, and I was like, this guy, like, you got Dr. Markides on there, you have no idea who he is, haven't read any of his books, and so I would love to have him on to talk about that stuff. I've read all but two, I own all of his books, but there's two that I still haven't read, but that was like the Daskalos stuff. But man, like the stuff on Eastern monasticism, it blew my mind. Like, it's like, man, this sounds like some Jedi stuff, and this is within Christianity. So yeah, I'd love to meet Alex in person and talk to him about that after he kicks my butt and thrashes me thoroughly.
So why don't we do me a favor while we're thinking about it, let's drop a note in the show notes below about Dr. Markides' material. And then, like that way I'll try to follow up on some of that as well.
I'm actually Facebook friends with him, but he's not, I think,
not active.
He's not really on Facebook. He's a professor at the University of Maine, sociology. So.
Because I'm trying to finish up a book that Ray had recommended called the Zen Teachings of Bodhidharma, which is a translation by a monk named Red Pine Taiwan, I think, but it has like both the English and the Chinese right there.
Mhm.
And not that I can read enough Chinese to make any sense out of it. I can only make out like every third word right now. But in the English, of course, is fine. But yeah, it's man, it's been blowing my mind actually. It just kind of helping some light bulbs go off there.
Uh,
So I think go
I
ahead.
um I don't know if I should say this on here, but to like actually like read the Jesus Sutras, I might have to scan my book and just send you like make a PDF um, for educational purposes in case anybody is out there for educational purposes only, and I can't do that for the entire audience. So yeah, you might have to remind me about that, but yeah, because I posted a link, but it's like to Amazon, and then there's to like buy them.
Right. Well, that's fine. We should start doing some affiliate links so that if people want to purchase some stuff and follow up on things that we're talking about, they can help support the show at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So yeah, I think I had made a note that I wanted to kind of talk about a couple other things as far as like it's like what we're struggling with right now, and some interesting stuff that Bernie had sent me about fascia. But I think we're getting into the time frame, and we got to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to talk about a little bit on this show, or this episode, I should say, is I wanted to start kind of bringing a little bit more information about nutrition out to the audience. So, and a couple things that while I'm thinking about it, the first one is that what I was going to say, just to add some context, is that I am a certified level 1 precision nutrition coach, and you are registered in the course, but you've not completed yet. So since you're waiting on the new job to start, I wanted to challenge you to try and finish your PN1 cert this summer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm go for it. The new job starts at the end of the month. New old job, but I mean, I have to go through 2 months of training, 2.5 months of training. So it's really, and I haven't really forgotten anything.
Right.
So it's kind of like I'm just going there for 8 hours a day to practice. Right. So yeah, I plan on getting back into everything. I'd like to start back tomorrow, but I got to get through this Instagram course that I started back in January. That's my objective, in addition to editing everything for the podcast and my YouTube channel this week, is getting through that Instagram course. So yeah, I'll definitely start the PN next week. Get back to getting through the quizzes and the reading material.
Who's the Instagram course through?
It's this guy. He's in the Dominican Republic. It's Jose Pena. Basically everything that I've ever like told you about Instagram, it's all come from Jose. Like I've been following him for 2 years, and then I'm like, well, I keep talking about, man, I really need to try to do his course, and then I like signed up for it, and I got through like half of it in January. Then I started it back working with special needs kids full time, and it was like, man, my brain is just too wiped out. So I started looking at it. He updated the course, and I went and looked at the updates, and it's like, you know what? I just need to say 2 days. I'm just going to go through the whole thing in 2 days, take notes, because there's some things that I missed, but a lot of it is just comes down to, I mean, with anything, it's just a lot of research and sitting down and getting your hands dirty, even with something as simple as is Instagram. So that was why, you know, what I was saying before we started recording about my YouTube channel. It's gonna be a network basically.
Right. Right.
Star Wars, geek stuff, martial arts, fitness, everything. Maybe I ought to do some videos with PN. We could collab on that, like, and you come on my channel and we could talk nutrition stuff, like in little 5-minute videos, and then you can get yourself out there as offering coaching services, and
right.
and I don't know, you send me whatever and I'll edit the videos, or I don't know, I'll edit them. That's no issue. But yeah, let's you know, because we're live on the podcast right now, but we can communicate. And then if you're at the retreat, but if you could get to like a Dropbox or something, or the Google stuff, and you have time where you can cut a quick video, maybe something comes up, and that way, you know, location doesn't matter as long as you have access to.
Right. Well, it's still the internet out there is like pretty spotty. It's like real slow. So I mean, it's not really like out in the boonies, but it's kind of in a more remote area of Oregon, and they don't really have like a good internet out there. But anyway, so like you said, let's get back on track. So the question that I wanted to tackle in today's or in this week's episode is, does eating fat make you fat? Right. So because there's, you know, everybody's got like their approach to, you know, it's like all the diets that are out there, and you know, most of them, or pretty much all of them, work, like at least in the short term. But you know, some people are like, eat all, you know, like what the hell's that banana chick? What the hell's her name? Right?
Freely.
So
yeah, so it's like a day, mate.
It's all, you know, like it's all carbs, right? And no fat. And then or some people, it's like, you know, keto is really popular right now, so they're like all fat and no carbs. So of course, if you're familiar with keto already, then you should probably say that you know, no, eating fat doesn't make you fat. But you know, because for a long time in this country, right, like fat, especially saturated fat, was vilified, right, like from the American Heart Association and all those guys. But actually, it's a mixed truth, right? There is a little bit of truth to it, in the fact that fat is the macronutrient that doesn't need to be converted. It doesn't have to go through a process to be converted before it can be stored. It can just be stored directly.
Yeah.
So if you're eating too much, right, you're eating too many calories, you got too much energy coming in, your body is going to preferentially store the fat as fat, and it'll burn off most of the carbs for energy first, and then whatever's left over on that will get converted into fat. But in general, just by itself, if you're eating the right amount of fat, then no, like eating fat by itself doesn't make you fat. So just to give folks listening like something actionable to take away, usually like from like the precision nutrition guidelines, they'll talk about that for the average man, you may have to adjust it depending on your own needs, but the average man should eat like 2 thumbs worth of fat at each meal, you know, about 3 or 4 meals a day. And the average woman is probably going to want to eat about half to 3/4 of that. Again, it will depend on like your activity levels and how much muscle mass you have and everything. And those are just kind of like general guidelines. But so what that would mean is that, you know, like in practical purposes, is that, you know, like let's say you were going to eat like some almonds or some macadamia nuts or something like that, then you would want about 2 thumbs equivalent worth of macadamia nuts, which depending on how big you are, like the Mauna Loa brand, I think they only sell, like they sort all their product or whatever before they package it. After last week's episode, I don't want to say the word nuts anymore. But yeah, I think Mauna Loa, they sort their products, so they only give you like the big ones, And
big ones.
yeah. So they yeah.
Thing I would remember it.
Right. So I set us up for that one. But yeah, they you're probably only going to get about 6 of those in that kind of a serving size. Whereas like if you buy some of the store brand ones, you know, those store brand macadamias, you're probably going to get, you know, like 6 or 8 or 12. But yeah, just something to kind of give people to take away, something actionable. And then my screen is giving me troubles. There we go. What do you have to add on that? What are your preferred sources of fat?
I want to say avocados.
Yeah.
When you were talking, I was really thinking about like if people really want to take control of their nutrition, and nutrition is really going to be, if you're looking at performance or physique, like physical changes you can see, nutrition is really where it's at. You still got to train, you know, specificity. Right. You know, I can eat a diet as clean as I want. It's not going to make me jump like LeBron James. I actually got to train for that. Speaking of which, I wish I could drop an affiliate link to a really good vertical leap program, but I don't think they take affiliate. I don't think Elliot and Chris do affiliates anymore. Shame on you guys. I would love to have Elliot or Chris on. Both, really Chris, because everybody wants Elliot, but I'm like, Chris is the one that runs Strength Camp. Now, I'm talking about the guys who run Strength Camp, like the actual gym, not the YouTube channel, even though it's the same business. But anyway, I was thinking about like, you really need to know exactly what you're putting in your body. I mean, you can still go out to eat, but like I have this rule kind of where I will only eat fast food if I walk to the place, because I get exercise going and coming back, right? But I was going to one of them, and I was thinking like, you know, I don't really know how they cook this or where this stuff comes from or where they get their food from. Where if I make a burger, it's gonna be a veggie burger. I'm gonna go to these places. It's like, today I'm not gonna be a vegetarian. I really have a taste for this, and I don't want to go all the way across town just to get a veggie burger. But I mean, even still, I don't know where that stuff comes from because it's processed on some level. But you know, this is the 21st century. I don't expect everybody to eat clean 100% of the time. If I have clients again, I'm gonna. Well, when I had clients, you know, it's like I would say, hey man, you train hard, you eat clean most of the time. I don't believe in cheat meals, but you know, I think if you want this and you're gonna work it off at some point, enjoy yourself. You know, I really did. I had a girl that went on a vacation. I'm not gonna go too far on this tangent, but she calls me up crying on her vacation because she went to Wendy's and had a triple cheeseburger. And I'm like, first off, Wendy's triple cheeseburgers are fucking amazing. So you're on vacation. Yeah, you're on vacation, visiting your family you haven't seen in like 5 years. The last time they saw you, you were like really fat and about to die. And now, you know, you could do all this amazing stuff with kettlebells. And I was like, enjoy it. I was like, actually, your body needs a break. You've been like killing yourself, like working out harder than even I want you to work out for like 6 months. You're there for a week. Shit, go back and get a Frosty. One meal isn't going to undo 6 months worth of work. Like some trainers might, yes, it will, Prince. I'm like, hey, enjoy life, man. Like enjoy yourself. But back to what I was saying about like it being important to know at least somewhere along the lines of what you're putting in your body. And I think that's like my biggest fear about going through PN is like, okay, now that I've got the training, now that I've got the knowledge, now I have to get the wisdom. right? Because I know what to do and what to tell people, but now to like really understand it, to be like wise with all of this, I got to put into practice, because I had this thing where I don't tell people to do stuff that haven't actually tried. Even with powerlifting, I keep saying, man, I got to incorporate powerlifting. For what I want to do, I don't need to do any freaking powerlifting. I'm trying not to drop so many F-bombs.
Right.
But I'm really hesitant about really like training general population, even though that's where the money is. I was like, most of the people are like, look, you just gotta get strong, man. You just gotta get strong.
Right. And I mean, we
So
were,
that's where I gotta do it,
like what you were saying earlier is that no matter what you're putting in your body, you still got to train. And like we actually talked about that in one of the science sections a few episodes back, of how having a sedentary life or a sedentary lifestyle affects your nutrient partitioning, like how your body like decides what to do with the calories that you are eating, right? If you're inactive, then your body says, "Hey, you know what? We don't need to do anything useful with this material except bank it for later. Let's save it as fat." If you are active, the muscle cell signaling to basically to your metabolism is saying, "Hey, you know what? We need the resources. So preferentially shuttle, especially like the protein, to the muscle cells in order to grow bigger, get stronger, so that they're ready for the stress next time." Going back to stay on topic a little bit, as far as like talking about fats. I mean, I'm kind of right there with you, where it's like avocados are one of my preferred sorts. Right? Yeah, right. So I actually start to use a lot of avocado oil as well. So which I tend to just like, if I'm going to make a smoothie, I'll put a healthy squirt of avocado oil in there. Mostly because, so for instance, since we're talking about fats, it's like butter is all the rage, right? With the keto people, and with the keto coffee. I won't mention the brand name, but the keto coffee, which I've indulged in myself, but so for instance, like gallbladder disease runs in my family. So one of the things that I've been meaning to do, and actually it would be interesting to do for a future show, is to get the results of get the full 23andMe workup, and like cover because they'll tell you like what markers you have that indicate you may or may not be more susceptible for certain types of diseases, right? And so I have the suspicion that I'm an APOE3/4 carrier, which is the gene that means that you don't process saturated fats as well. I think I mentioned this before, but so then that's kind of rough on the gallbladder. So since I know that gallbladder disease runs in my family, like it killed my grandmother basically, and then my dad had to have his gallbladder out when he was younger than me, I think. And so I know that I need to kind of like take it a little bit easy. I still have, I mean, I still include grass-fed butter as part of in my diet, but I don't hit it hard. I know that I need to kind of watch my saturated fat a little bit. So I focus more on the monounsaturated fats, and I get a lot of those through either olive oil or avocado oil, and a lot of macadamia nuts, and which is why I happen to mention those so prominently earlier. But yeah.
Groovy. I'm doing some admin stuff.
What do we got? Okay.
Oh, wait, I can't do that. Oh, I can do it on my phone. I'm trying to send out a notification that we're recording, and I just remembered I can.
Can't do it from the laptop.
Yeah, because
Oh,
I'm like
wow.
logged into this YouTube
All
account.
right. Well, while you're taking care of that, let me put it out there for again. We want some comments from those of you who are watching the show. And like I said, both Prince and I have a long background with exercise and nutrition. And so if you have a question about nutrition, go ahead and drop that in the comment section below, and we will answer it in a future episode. But I think again, what I kind of would like to mention is that, for the most part, like you don't need a special diet. Like everybody already knows, like eat more vegetables, eat less processed food. So like, for instance, like, because that was one of the things that I want to mention was that, so for instance, like about processed food, I think, and on the subject of fats, like one of the biggest problems with that is just that a lot of it ends up being the hydrogenated fats, which are like really bad because they get ink. What are you doing over there?
I'm trying to like paste the link and it's like not letting me paste it.
Uh, you look like you were trying to choke back another laughing fit. I thought you were gonna
No.
send me something that I got your Facebook message about like
The big ones.
Mhm. Yeah. So anyway, while you're finishing up with that, I think it's a good time just to pivot into our section on science, where we talk about uh, recent studies
You
or
should
papers. I
put
guess
your
we should.
you should put your belief in the Lord.
I don't believe in God. I believe in science.
That was
So
great.
there was a couple of interesting studies, but yeah, in this segment of the show where we like to talk about some interesting research papers that have been published that deal specifically with areas of human health and nutrition and fitness. And so there was two that I came across. The first one, let's just cover this one real quick because it's just more fuel to the fire that glyphosate, aka Roundup, is
Oh, that's what
not
that
so.
is. It's Roundup. Okay.
Yeah, it's Roundup. Yeah, so it's not so good for us. Which actually, this is going to be like a whole nother. This could be a whole nother episode. I think I mentioned that at some point I wanted to talk about like the role of intuition.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but because you figure it's like the hippies have been against Roundup forever, and they all swore that that it was bad for us, of course. But now the science is starting to leak out, like slowly but surely. Like, so for instance, I think even the FDA recently like made an announcement that yeah, glyphosate is in pretty much like everything that we're eating. I don't want to get like too far into like conspiracy theory territory, but I think if I remember her name correctly, Dr. Stephanie Senoff, maybe it was, but she's done some research on glyphosate and the relationship to autism.
Mhm.
So like her whole thing was no, it's not vaccines that are contributing to the skyrocketing rates of autism. It's glyphosate. Um, because Monsanto's position is that glyphosate is it doesn't affect the cellular metabolism of humans. Um, but what it does affect by the same pathway, if I remember correctly, it does affect the same pathway as our gut microbiota, like all the yeasts and bacteria and everything that are in our large intestine, especially. And that plays a crucial role in our health. And also because it's like if your gut microbiota is off, it will affect your mental state, right? I mean, even just from things as simple as like brain fog. Um, but there's some debate about the validity of her research, so I want to go ahead and put that out there. But the study that we're talking about specifically in this episode is titled "Glyphosate Exposure in Pregnancy and Shortened Gestational Length: A Prospective Indiana Birth Cohort Study." So in this study, what they did, it was pretty small. It was only 71 women. They were mostly all white, and they were in the average of about 30 years old. But what they found was that they were being exposed to glyphosate, aka Roundup, through the food source. The conclusion was they found that 90% of pregnant women had detectable glyphosate levels, and that these levels correlated significantly with shortened pregnancy length. What they did say in the study is that, of course, further investigation is required, but that I think when I was looking at like birth weights and head circumference, they were saying that it didn't seem to affect that, but I don't know if they corrected for the shortened birth. So in other words, like, if they were born at 36 weeks instead of 40, if they compared the growth in the head circumference to other births at 36 weeks, or if they compared it to a normal 40-week gestation. Yeah, so I would say that the takeaway from this is to buy organic, again, as much as possible. Just because it's organic doesn't guarantee that it's going to be glyphosate free. Yeah. It's like the organic label's been kind of weakened, more or less. There's like, I don't know, I think there's something like around 40 like approved pesticides and chemicals that are still okay to use on organic produce or organic crops, and still label the crop as being organic. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's not what I'm thinking of is not pertinent to this study. But when you raised the mentioned the one particular lady that I was looking at, maybe a connection between Roundup and autism. Like, I've always felt it's like, what does everybody do to eat? So
right.
I said there's obviously a connection between food and the environment and rising autism rates, because I just don't. Maybe there is. I mean, I know there's some situations where this kid was fine, and then they went and got a vaccine, and then a few weeks later, like, ish hit the bed. Like,
right.
What is it? Confounding factors or variables that could account, but I'm like, everybody eats food. If it's something in the food
right.
that wasn't always in our diet or in the ecosystem, as far as where our food is coming from, when you and I were little kids, it's there. That started getting there in the mid to late 90s. And
right.
But what you mentioned about comparisons between a normal premature births aren't normal, but and I don't know if 36 is that still considered premature? I mean,
I'm just saying it was a shortened gestational period compared to like a normal 40 week. I'm not sure if it would actually be considered premature, but it's like, they still are going to have like an average, okay, from this birth weight to this birth weight and this head circumference to this head circumference is going to be normal for birth at 36 weeks, 37, 38, 40 weeks, and that kind of thing. But because I think in our first episode, we had also talked about glyphosate. I think I had mentioned a study where it's like they had found that exposure to glyphosate is contributing to type 2 diabetes. because of the way that it affects the gut microbiota.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then it's like you're creating additional blood sugar um, when the food gets to the gut because it's not being metabolized normally
Yeah.
in the presence of like a healthy gut microbiome. So yeah, so eat lots of fiber. They say like that the ancestral and like a lot of the people that are doing like the ancestral approach to health and wellness, diet or whatever. And I haven't found anything that you know any like hardcore studies that have been done on it, but the number that's been floating around, I hear quite a few times, is that a lot of our traditional cultures and societies would have been eating upwards of like 100 grams of dietary fiber a day. And in the United States, we're lucky if we're hitting like 15. If you're not eating like your 5 servings of, even if you're getting five servings of fruits and vegetables, you might be hitting somewhere between like 35 and 40 grams of fiber. And man, it's like you can tell like when you go into a public restroom and you hear, it's like you can hear the guys like in the stalls like grunting like they're a water buffaloes giving birth. They're like huffing and puffing and like sweating like oh. So yeah, I'm like, man, what might help with that, bro, if you ate a vegetable once in a while. But yeah, because then all the fiber, obviously, like we as humans don't digest it, but the our gut microbiota do.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're eating all like processed food and no fiber, like those are going to be the bacteria, the ones that process that kind of stuff. And actually, there's some other things that I don't want to get too far off topic, but yeah. So, moral of the story is more evidence that glyphosate is jacking us up.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it's in everything now. It's like all these. I mean, and that's probably like I know that there's a big argument around GMO foods, right? Are they safe or not? And everyone says like there's no studies that provide evidence that GMOs are harmful. I mean, I have kind of a different perspective on it anyway. I mean, for my own personal belief is that the reason that GMOs are dangerous is because they're all copyright material. So like, it's like a farmer can't save their seeds. The control of food production becomes centralized under the model of GMOs. But that's a whole nother thing. That's getting off into politics, which we're not about on this show. But the hidden danger, you might say, of like all the GMO foods is the glyphosate, because the reason that a lot of these foods have been genetically modified is to be able to allow them to take more glyphosate. And so then it's like the crops and everything's are sprayed so heavily that, again, while we're talking about pesticides, is that if you can only buy one thing organic, make sure that it's strawberries. And if it's two things, it's apples. But yeah, because generally speaking, of course, not everyone has the budget to buy everything like all organic, right? So especially in terms of like fresh produce, you can kind of like think of it more of like in terms of thin skin and thick skin. So, it's like if it's a thin skin, buy organic. But especially because like strawberries are essentially like a sponge, and they're they're not full of glyphosate. They're sprayed with a different one called I think it's a dimethyl bromide, if I remember correctly. But it's a systemic contamination. It's like no amount of washing strawberries, like conventionally grown strawberries, will remove that. Yeah. So of course, Right. Yeah. So, because it's just coming in right through the root system, since especially since I mean strawberries are probably like 99% water. Um, but yeah, if it's got a thicker skin, then chances are you probably don't need to spend the money on buying organic. But and then also because one of the biggest sources of glyphosate is wheat and wheat products. So I think this is just my personal view based on observation, but I kind of lean towards the people that a majority of the people that think that they have non colitis gluten intolerance or non celiac gluten intolerance. I think a large percentage of those are actually sensitive to the glyphosate, or they're experiencing the symptoms of a disrupted gut microbiome due to the glyphosate exposure. Because it's in so I mean, I could be wrong on this, but I think the wheat and corn and soy are really like the main crops that are sprayed with glyphosate. But friggin' wheat, corn, and soy, especially wheat and soy, is in everything now.
And there, yeah,
So,
well, fed to everything.
right. So those are probably good products to also try and go a bit more towards the organic side of things, especially because like any grain product, I mean, like I was going to say that, the best option for strawberries is to grow your own. Try to grow
Yeah,
as much fruit as you can if you have the space and you have the time. It doesn't take that much know-how to start a little garden.
yeah, and it
Um,
tastes better.
right. Oh, yeah. And but if you can't do that, then you're going to have to try to limit some of your exposure to this stuff. Uh, yeah. Moreover, I missed this part when I was looking at the study earlier. Moreover, glyphosate induced DNA damage and chromosomal breaks in vitro and in vivo in mice. That was, man, this stuff is just crazy.
So it affects like basically fertility.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was another study that I was looking at where it reduced. I think that was another study that we talked about where it reduced the fertility of mice. So it's bad stuff, man. Bad stuff. But yeah, like I said, the only thing that you can do about it is try and limit like how much conventional grain products you're eating. So that's actually, I don't know about you. Like, do you get a lot of wheat in your diet?
Uh, yeah, I do. Well, normally when I buy my bread, I get it from like Trader Joe's or yeah, from Trader Joe's. Uh, I try not to, or if I buy like from a regular store, they like the really nice bread. I try not to buy like the bunny bread and all that kind of stuff.
Right,
Um, but it's hard because wheat is in everything. They use it for fillers and everything, but
right.
I don't. I mean, lately I've been eating a lot of rice. You know what? I have been eating a lot of this past week though, and it's like straight wheat. Is couscous.
No, couscous is its own grain.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like wheat too or something.
You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. You know what? I need to look that. I was thinking of quinoa. My bad.
Yeah, I've been eating a lot of couscous this week, mostly because I had it and I had a big jar of it, and I was like, "Oh, this has
Right.
been here for a few years. I probably ought to eat this."
Now I got to look it up.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, fortunately, it is durum wheat.
yeah,
Couscous is a Maghrebi dish of small steam balls of crushed durum wheat semolina.
yeah. Good
I don't
stuff.
usually. Yeah, I mean, I had a girlfriend like a long time ago. She was vegetarian. She ate a lot of that kind of stuff. So I had some like 25 years ago. I don't think I've eaten couscous probably in 25 years. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking I had it in my head that it was a grain like quinoa. Um,
And
So
sometimes I will eat like straight up gluten. Like if you got celiac disease, you might not want to hang out with me because I will eat straight up. I got a recipe for Chinese freaking gluten balls, and you can fry them. You can do, man. When I figure out how to do that, it's gonna be over.
Yeah, I've cleaned out most of the wheat out of my diet for like a long time ago. I probably get the majority of my carbs. I mean, I'm probably still getting like glyphosate exposure from corn, because I eat, so I live in the Southwest, so probably 40% of my diet is like Mexican food or kind of Mexican fusion food. So I'm getting the corn there, but otherwise I eat probably like a lot of rice. I eat almost no pasta and very little. Like I can't remember the last time I had a slice of bread. Every once in a while I'll have like I'll make some toast. But I actually had bought some almond flour to be able to make like a low carb, like wheat free like bread, because every once in a while, I'll just want to like throw a slice or two in a pan with some butter and kind of like do like almost like a grilled cheese kind of thing, but with some nut butter and maybe just like a little bit of a jam or something like that. But yeah, other than that, I don't really eat like a whole bunch of wheat, so I'm kind of good there. But yeah, so
I need to move back out that way. I would eat Mexican food, Thai food, Chinese food. That would be it. That'd be all I'd eat if I was in Phoenix.
But you know what?
Go back.
What's ironic is that I've been doing Chinese martial arts for like almost 17 years now. And Chinese food is not my thing, bro. I don't know. I like Thai food. I like Vietnamese food.
Oh yeah, I forgot Vietnamese food too.
Right. I like the more kind of like fresh, sort of tropical approach to food. And it's like every time, no matter where I go, like if I'm there with seafood, it's gonna be. Actually, I mean, there's like I have some friends that are from Taiwan, and I love their food. And so like some Sichuan style stuff is all right. It's the Cantonese style stuff that is I'm not really like a big fan of. Yeah. But that's everywhere. And whenever you're traveling with seafood, it's like that's what you're gonna have. But yeah, if I have my preference,
I like Sichuan dishes and Mongolian dishes.
Right.
I'm not sure how call it all Chinese food.
Right.
I can only get it at a Chinese restaurant.
Right. So, but I think we're coming up on our time for the day.
Yeah. Hunan.
So do you want to
good too?
Say what now?
Hunan food.
Hunan.
Yeah.
Have you ever had much Korean food?
Man, there was this lady that had a Korean spot. I don't know what happened to it, but she had some good stuff too. She was a little mama son. She'd be like, "Oh, hey baby, I get some extra food," and I think later on she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I got a girl. Like I'm trying to bring her over."
Right.
That's why I said the mama son. But yeah.
Right. Well, that's good stuff. When I first got married to my wife, there was a Korean restaurant that was like around the corner. This was like 20 years ago. It was like on the other side of town. And so I was like, let's go try some Korean food. I never had Korean food before. So like we went in there and man, it was a really bizarre experience. And I was like, man, what's going on in here? And there was like, some karaoke and stuff in there. But it was weird. So then like there was like this one random dude that was in there who was not Korean. And he was like real, I don't know, he just like flipped my switch. I was like, what's going on with this guy right here? So anyway, come to find out then that that whole place was a front for like Korean prostitutes. So it was like all the all the waitresses that were in there were prostitutes, and the guy was a pimp.
I had a friend in the Navy, and he called this place the coffee shop. And I would go to Starbucks all the time and use my computer after work. And he was like, "Oh, you like the coffee?" I shouldn't impersonate him because somebody that knows me is going to hear it and they will know exactly who I'm talking about. Actually, the minute I said the coffee shop, they probably already know. But yeah,
Right.
oh man, Bell, you like coffee? He was like, "Don't go there. Come to the coffee shop with me." And so I never knew what he was talking about. And then we got to Korea. He was my Liberty buddy, and he took me all over Busan looking for hookers.
Looking for some Busan.
Yeah, looking for some Busan. And that's when I found out the truth about the coffee shop. Was it was like the Starbucks and you getting all the baristas. Oh yeah, you want a mocha choca latte? I'm gonna choke on some.
All right.
You want some Viagra with your coffee?
Right. Yeah. That little blue pill going on.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up for this week. Prince, what do you got going on? Anything you want to tell people about?
Actually, yeah. Check Urban Acolyte TV, my YouTube channel. We did a live tweet party on Black Panther last night. So I'm gonna turn all of my tweets into a video. So it'll be a full review and discussion of Black Panther. Look for that next week. I got the Han Solo visual guide and art of the Solo movie books coming in tomorrow. I'll try to get out, see it a second time tomorrow, and get up my full Han Solo review. So if you want to geek out and talk Marvel and Star Wars, check out my channel, Urban Acolyte TV, here on YouTube. Well, not here if you're listening to the podcast, but over on YouTube.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, actually, I started working on my first book. So,
Nice.
yeah, so I don't know how long it's going to take me to crank that out, but I think it should be interesting for some folks because I think, I think I've talked about before where it's like the ancestral, sort of like the idea of the ancestral approach to diet and lifestyle, like really resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's kind of like a lot of grab-assing, at what constitutes. So I think I have a framework that's like fairly unique in terms of like how to figure out like where all the pieces fit. And so, yeah, so I started working on that. I pitched some of it to a friend of mine like 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna send that off to have it transcribed, and then I'll turn that into like a PDF download, so people will be able to check that out when that one's available. I'll make sure that I let everybody know. But in the meantime, don't forget that we have a Patreon account for the Embodied Mind podcast. So if you're listening and you would like to support the show financially, it does take a lot of time and effort and equipment and internet connection and all that kind of stuff to be able to put these shows together for you. Hopefully, we are providing you with good information and give you guys something to think about. And if that's true and you would like to support the show, go ahead and head over to Patreon and sign up to support us over there. There'll be a link in the video description below. And if you have a question or a subject that you'd like Prince and I to cover in a future episode, go ahead and drop that in the comment section below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. That's at Ash Higgs. I'm also on Instagram. Prince, I know that you're on Twitter and Instagram also, is at Urban Acolyte TV on just Urban Acolyte on YouTube. I mean, on Twitter. Sorry. But yeah, so head over there, drop us a comment, tweet at us, and let us know what kind of subjects that you would like us to cover as far as human health and wellness. And that includes subjects like meditation, martial arts, fitness, kettlebells, diet, nutrition, spirituality. As you can see, it's like we have Prince is a great resource to be able to discuss some of that stuff with as No, I spaced it again. I was going to say it was a PhD. I was going to say a doctoral candidate, but you didn't make it as far as a PhD, but still the master's in divinity. So yeah, so check us out. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
All right, y'all. Take care.